Joining us live from Canberra now for his reaction is the Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor. Angus, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So you've had a bit more time now to process the budget. Is it enough to ease the pinch for households?
Well, it's clearly not going to do that. I mean, that was the test for Labor. Were they going to take the strength of the economy and the strengthening budget position we've seen and deal with the challenges Australians are facing? Top of that list is cost of living, Pete, and the budget failed the test. Typical Australian family will be $2,000 worse off by Christmas, and there's absolutely nothing in this budget to help them. The question I guess I'm starting to ask the morning after the budget is, what was the point? This is the first budget since Federation where they've redone a previous budget. It's full of doom, gloom, commentary and forecasting, but no plan. And what we needed was a coherent plan, a clear plan for dealing with those pressures Australians are facing. There's certainly not that in there. There's a lot of broken election promises, I have to say, and the two most obvious ones that they've given up on their $275 electricity price reduction. They've just swept that away. And they've given up on delivering real wage improvements in this election cycle. Real wages going backwards in this election cycle. That's incredibly disappointing for Australians. You know, Jim Chalmers, I guess the question you've got to ask is, why did he do this? It's just a vanity project. What was the point? Was
it responsible, though, to just bank the extra money that we're receiving from resources?
Well, he hasn't done that. I mean, he's got an extra $142 billion of taxation since the March budget coming out over the forwards. So $142 billion over the next 4 years. He's spending $115 billion of that. The vast majority of that windfall is being spent. And worse than that, you actually see the budget deficit worsening over the next 3 years, over this election cycle. He's making it worse. So, the idea that this was responsible, spending an extra $115 billion since the March budget, and given that the economic situation has improved since then, is just remarkable. I mean, this budget is not an answer to anything. It's not dealing with either the symptoms of the cost of living pressures or the source. And that's what's so disappointing about it. There is no plan here to speak of. And there's a real question about why the budget was even held at a time when it's not normally held.
Sure. I mean, but to be fair, one of those sources is the war in Ukraine, which can't really do much about that. I mean, you'd be copying that if you were in government now. But on to energy prices. I've just got to move on, Angus, here, just short of time. But energy prices, they're going to spike next year and beyond. How should the government help folks in the short term?
Well, first of all, they should keep their election commitments. I mean, that's the first point. If you say to the Australian people, no asterisks, no footnotes, we're going to deliver a $275 electricity price reduction, you should deliver it. Now, I've said for quite some time, the best way to deliver is get more supply into the market. Chris Bowen shows no interest in that.
There's no problem with supply, though, is there? I mean, the problem is that most of it goes overseas.
Well, you've got to get more. There's two parts to this. You've got to get more gas supply into the domestic gas network, and you've got to get more dispatchable electricity generation in place. I don't see anything from Labor that's going to achieve either of those things. So the situation will get worse, and Australians will pay the price. If the government can't manage its own affairs, then households have to do it for them. And sadly, that's where it's going.
Well, if, as you say, households are looking at another $2,000 a year for their energy bills, would you support a UK-style subsidy?
Well, I haven't seen any proposal. You don't need to subsidise if you get your policies right. That's the point. We saw an 8% reduction in electricity prices in recent years for Australian households, and that was all about just getting more supply into the market. Labor's not interested in that. They've got all sorts of, Chris Bowen's got all sorts of other goals he's trying to achieve. You just got to get focused back on the interests of Australian households and Australian businesses. That is the overwhelming point here.
If they were to pitch that now, though,
there's no sign of that in this budget.
If they were to pitch that now, though, a subsidy system, and bearing in mind that was massive cost blowouts that the UK would have faced, is that something that you would be open to, or do you think because of that we shouldn't go down that road because it would just add to inflationary pressures?
Well, I've said what I think the answer is. I mean, obviously, you don't want to subsidise because it costs taxpayers money. That's the point. And so the best way to achieve a solution is to just get more supply into the markets that count. And it's doable. We did it. I mean, we saw exactly that happen. Now, Labor doesn't seem to be showing any interest in this. But look, the broader point here is we've got a series of broken promises, real wages going backwards. I mean, this is something Labor made a real deal about during the election campaign, but nothing.
Okay,
nothing
just one more.